What a good taste Formula One leaves with a spectacular race. Nothing like what we saw last week, and that leaves the fight even more heated. For the driver's title, the Bahrain Desert Circuit promised a thrilling race, and it did not disappoint, giving us battles, strategy, fights, confrontations, in short, Formula One in its purest state. So ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to summarize this speedfest. So welcome then to the summary of the fourth round of the Formula One World Championship, the Bahrain Grand Prix. Before starting this race, we had a few penalties that were going to affect the starting grid after qualifying. Nico Hülkenberg, who qualified 13th, would ultimately start the race in 16th position because he went off the track limits on his last attempt in Q1. Despite advancing, the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile later stripped him of his position and demoted him to 16th place. Russell and Antonelli took 2nd and 4th place at the start of this Grand Prix, but they were penalized with a position for having sent their cars to form in Q2 before the announcement that the qualification was going to resume after a red flag. Oscar Piastri secured the pole position, being the sole driver to beat the 1:30 record. In a good opportunity for him because Norris would start P6 and he would have Charles Leclerc and George Russell as escorts. So if he wanted to make a statement, the Australian driver needed to win and make a difference to both Norris and Max Verstappen. So on Sunday, everything was set for a real great race. And once the cars were lined up on the starting grid, the traffic lights would go out. And with that, the Bahrain Grand Prix would begin. Leclerc, on medium tires, had a poor start and was quickly overtaken by Joe Russell and Norris. Race direction noticed Norris had a false start. Despite stopping the car, he moved out of his slot and fell behind. A 5-second penalty for this. Verstappen had a bad start and fell to 8th position, but overall it was a fairly calm start from all the drivers. Despite a busy but calm race, Carlos Sainz overtook Antonelli and Verstappen, only to be passed by both drivers on lap 5. The Italian and then the Dutchman capitalized on the Spanish driver's unsettled exit and overtake him at turn 4. However, in these few laps, the high level of tire wear had already begun, so the drivers had to start dealing with this situation. Carlos Sainz was suffering quite a bit. In fact, he ended up being overtaken by Lewis Hamilton, who progressively started to fall in pace. By lap 10, Antonelli overtakes Pierre Gasly to move into 6th place with an impressive maneuver. And it wouldn't be until lap 11 that the leaders would start to pit in this race. Norris pitted on lap 11, having to serve his 5-second penalty on lap 12 and 13. It would be Tsunoda and Antonelli who would pit. But Russell doesn't pit until lap 14, thus managing to avoid Norris's undercut and a lap later, precisely to protect himself from a Russell undercut. Piastri pits, defending his first position to be able to exit, leaving Leclerc and Hamilton as leaders, who started the race with a medium tire, seeking an alternative strategy and extending the first pit stop. And it wouldn't be until lap 18 that both Hamilton and Leclerc would pit to mount another set of medium tires. At first, this seemed like a strategic mistake because their drivers wanted a single pit stop, but they quickly started to go, faster than Russell and Lando Norris. So this strategy ended up being a success, which was intended to be finished with the soft tire. By lap 24, Leclerc was within range of Norris, and on lap 25, he mercilessly overtook him to secure 3rd place. Seeing that this strategy was working just as Ferrari had planned, however, Leclerc got bogged down behind Russell, he couldn't get within drag reduction system range, and he also couldn't get away from Lando Norris. Further back, Verstappen, who switched to hard tires at the first stop, was struggling as that rubber didn't suit the Red Bull at all. At 21, he had bad pit stops and was losing significant pace. And Antonelli took advantage of that to pull off a monstrous overtaking, pinning Max at turn number 4. But then Hamilton would also overtake him without any difficulty, with a Verstappen who could do practically nothing. And he had to come in on lap 27 to put on mediums and completely change the strategy, where again he had a very bad pit stop. This was due to a small error in the pit lane traffic light. With this tire, his car started working much better. But soon, a collision between Yuki Tsunoda and Carlos Sainz would leave the track full of debris, just before some leaders began to make their pit stop, which ended up causing the safety car to come out on lap 33, where all the leaders stopped. And Piastri mounted the medium tire, Russell soft tires, Norris tire, medium, and the Ferraris had to change their strategy to mount the hard tire because they had no other choice and did not believe they could make it to the end with the soft tire, which obviously ruined their strategy. And some other drivers who had already stopped previously had to stop again, like Kimi Antonelli, who fell out of the points. Others like Verstappen stayed on track and recovered some positions, leaving the top 5 almost unchanged after the pit stop. But where at the back things had completely changed, with Verstappen 8th or 7th, Doohan 9th and Carlos Sainz in 10th position. The safety car would leave on lap 35, and from this point another race had completely started on this circuit. Piastri defended his lead while Norris attempted to overtake Leclerc on hard tires. The maneuver went wrong, allowing Hamilton to pass Norris, sending him to 5th position. Norris attempts to overtake Hamilton in turn 4 and manages to do so, but takes all 4 wheels off the track. As a result, he has to give the position back to Hamilton. A turn later and subsequently a lap later, he overtakes him because those hard tires were not working on the Ferrari. Behind Verstappen, Doohan, Tsunoda, Berman and Antonelli formed a train of cars with Doohan leading. He abruptly lost several positions, overtaken by other drivers falling out of the points. And in fact, they ended up giving him a 5-second penalty for track limits. Antonelli got bogged down behind his nodes train Connie Berman. And the Ks defended their positions like fighting dogs in a completely incredible way, not giving practically anyone the option to overtake them. Sainz, for his part, was having a party. He tried an overtaking move against Antonelli, which forced him off the track and he was penalized for it. He had another contact, damaging his car and forcing him to abandon the race due to the damages. And with that, his Grand Prix went completely to hell. Ahead, Norris was progressively reducing time to Leclerc because that hard tire was not working for him. By lap 45, Norris attempts to overtake him on the outside of turn 1, but locks the tire, losing significant time. Laps later, Norris catches up to him again, attacks him with drag reduction system for a few laps, but Leclerc defends very intelligently, not giving him room to complete the maneuver. However, he fell on lap 52 when Norris overtook him on the outside of turn 4, boxing him in at the entrance and capturing 3rd position. So at this point, only Russell was left to try to minimize the damage after his terrible qualification. Norris tried to overtake his fellow driver using drag reduction system but was unsuccessful despite his efforts. He defended himself well despite Russell's many issues with the steering wheel and car. Buttons failing, display turning off and incorrect information appearing on the screen. And despite all of this, Russell did everything possible to be able to stand in that 2nd position, and in the end, he managed to do it. One of the final moments in this Grand Prix was Verstappen battling Pierre Gasly for 6th place. And he managed to overtake him on the last lap to at least rescue 2 more points and not separate so much from the fight. But when lap 57 arrived, Piastri would end the absolute domination and achieve a new victory that brings him closer and closer to the leadership of the World Drivers' Table of the Grand Circus. 2nd victory of the season for Oscar Piastri, who again recites a real race, being superior to all his rivals, including his teammate. In a weekend without mistakes, with pace in all sessions, which should start to seriously worry his teammate. The rest of the top 10 of the Bahrain Grand Prix would end as follows. George Russell takes 2nd place despite the issues, while Norris secures 3rd. In a disappointing weekend, although he saves some face. Leclerc finished 4th, impacted by the safety car, while Lewis Hamilton recovered to secure 5th place. Max Verstappen finished 6th in a challenging weekend. 7th place for Pierre Gasly, earning the first points for Alpine, 8th place for Esteban Ocon, 9th place and points for Yuki Tsunoda. And closing the top 10 with Car Interruption, Oliver Berman taking the last available point in this Grand Prix. Unlike the last race, this one has been utter chaos, with numerous battles, confrontations, wheel-to-wheel action, controversies, and diverse strategies. And perhaps the only thing missing from this race was a real fight for the lead. But I think it has definitely been a great race that more than makes up for the last 2 races of this season, where my rating will be 9.5. Very good race. I tell you, I just missed fighting for the lead to give it a 10. But definitely this has been a real great race like the ones Bahrain circuit usually gives us. My drivers of the day are Esteban Ocon and Russell, but the best of the weekend is Oscar Piastri. Today he destroyed everyone. His pace was beastly, he had no problem with the car, unlike his teammate. And he has used this entire weekend to increase the pressure even more on the other side of the box, where Lando Norris is going to have to respond soon, or things are going to start getting seriously complicated for him in the upcoming Grand Prix. My disappointment of the day is the people at Red Bull. Once again, they show the problems they have with the car. In Wednesday's preview, I shared my prediction that ended up being accurate. They would struggle on this circuit. But it's not just that they suffered, they completely collapsed. We'll see if the package for the Imola Grand Prix can help them turn the situation around. And with what happens from Spain, start to fight. But apparently it doesn't seem realistic today, at least at this moment, that Max Verstappen can get the 5th consecutive driver's title. With this, we conclude the summary of the 2025 Formula 1 Bahrain Grand Prix. What did you think of the race? Did you enjoy it or were you disappointed? Who were your drivers of the day? And who were your disappointments of the day from this Bahrain Grand Prix? Let me know all your opinions in the comments section. I'll sign off by saying that if you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you know when I'm uploading a new video, and share this with your friends. I also invite you to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. The links will be in this video's description. And see you on Wednesday for the last preview of this triple set of races, the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. Thank you for tuning in and see you later. Thank you.